What's your favorite board game? For centuries, board games have done more than just bring people together. They've broken living room tables, ended friendships, and even made history. And that's just the good parts. From the oldest games ever discovered to that other oldest game ever discovered, and all the sneaky tricks hidden in the rules, I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 surprising facts about board games you didn't know. 25. The game with the oldest surviving rules. The Royal Game of Ur is the oldest board game in the world that still has surviving rules, going back to around 2600 BCE. Archaeologists uncovered the first set in Iraq in the 1920s, revealing a race game where players tossed dice to move pawns to the finish. The game was believed to have disappeared when backgammon took over a few eons ago, until Irving Finkel, a curator at the British Museum, translated ancient Babylonian tablets to reconstruct how it was played. So this game has outlasted empires, religions, and centuries of change. 24. The Hungry Hungry Hippos had names. Hungry Hungry Hippos, or just Hungry Hippos in some UK editions, has been a tabletop favorite since its debut in 1978. Produced by Hasbro under the Milton Bradley brand, it might surprise you to learn that the Hippos once had names. Happy's pink, Henry's orange, Homer's green, and Harry is yellow. The goal of the game is simple. Use the lever to make your hippo gobble up as many marbles as possible. Whoever grabs the most marbles wins. The game is so popular that it's inspired arcade versions, pop culture references, and even annual tournaments. 23. That hidden game. If you've ever spotted an unfamiliar grid on the back of a checkerboard, it was likely a board for Nine Men's Morris, or Cowboy Checkers. The strategy game dates back to the Roman Empire and reached its peak during medieval England. In fact, the game was so popular that boards were often carved into the seats of English cathedrals. Each player starts with 9 pieces, trying to reduce their opponent to just 2. A perfect game ends in a draw. Variations like 3, 6, or 12 Men's Morris adjust the board size and piece count, offering plenty of ways to enjoy this timeless classic. 22. Battleship began as a pencil and paper game. Before Battleship became the plastic grid game we know today, it started as a pencil and paper game called Broadsides, the game of naval strategy, back in 1943. Players sketched out grids, placed their ships, and guessed coordinates to sink their opponent's fleet. In 1967, Milton Bradley released it as a physical board game, and it's only grown from there, with versions like, oh crap, Electronic Battleship, I put that down too early, and even a Star Wars edition. And it did not stop there. Battleship even made its way to Hollywood in the 2012 film starring Liam Neeson. This, I think I've discovered, is from the 70s. I still have it. I mean, I wasn't born in the 70s, so my mom gave it to me. 1979, baby. Woo, I think it still works. 21. Scrabble's highest scoring word is a mouthful. If you're going for Scrabble glory, oxyphenbutazone is the word to beat. With a perfect board setup, this monster word can score a jaw-dropping 1,508 points when played across 3 triple word scores. Sure, it's almost impossible to pull off, but once you know what's possible, you'll definitely feel the extra excitement the next time you hit the board. Yeah, I had the... Which one's this? The deluxe? Yeah, it's the deluxe edition. This one's from like the 90s. This was my grandmother's. We used to play every Sunday at her condominium. 20. The grim origins of the game of life. These days, the game of life is all about cruising down life's highway, collecting pegs, and spinning your way to retirement. But the original version from 1860, called the checkered game of life, featured less cheerful stops like disgrace, crime, prison, and yes, even self-inflicted harm. We can't say the word. The mastermind behind the creation was none other than Milton Bradley himself, who wasn't exactly living his best life at the time. His lithography business had just tanked when Abraham Lincoln decided to grow a beard, making Bradley's clean-shaven Lincoln portraits totally unsellable. Broke and desperate, Bradley sketched out a game that reflected his own struggles, and somehow, it became a hit. 19. The oldest game still played today. Invented in China over 2,500 years ago, Go is the world's oldest board game still being played today. Over 46 million people worldwide know how to play it, and it has over 20 million active players, mostly in East Asia. The game is deceptively simple. 2 players place black and white stones on a grid's intersections trying to capture territory. Stones can't be moved once placed, but they can be captured and removed. The The game ends when both players agree no further moves are possible, and the score determines the winner. 18. Clue's lead pipes were made of real lead. In the early days of Clue, or Cluedo as it's known in the UK, the game features a weapon token that was as dangerous in real life as it was in the mansion, an actual lead pipe. Yes, the iconic token was originally made from real, poisonous lead. Thankfully, in 1965 it was swapped for steel and later pewter, much safer choices for budding detectives. 17. Monopoly's financially indestructible bank. If the bank runs out of cash, that's loud, during a game of Monopoly, it's never game over. According to the official rules, the banker can simply issue more money by printing some or writing it on any scrap of paper. In other words, the bank can never truly go broke. Maybe that's why so many games ended in violence. 16. Trivial Pursuit's plagiarism scandal. Trivial Pursuit, the game your know-it-all aunt always dominates, ironically stumbled over its own trivia in the 80s. The creators Scott Abbott and Chris Haney were hit with a $300 million lawsuit by Fred L. Worth, author of Super Trivia Volume 2, after allegedly lifting over 1/3 of their questions from his book. Worth had even planted a fake fact as a trap, claiming Detective Columbo's first name was Philip. It's actually Frank. When that false answer showed up in Trivial Pursuit, Worth pounced. Unfortunately for him, the courts ruled that you can't copyright facts. And yes, of course, I have the Disney edition. Where's this one from? 1985! I got a lot of old board games. And not just like the concept of the board, the actual, these are old versions of said board games. 15. Boggle's family-friendly design. Boggle is all about spotting words in a scrambled 4x4 grid of letters, connecting them in any direction to score points. But here's the fun fact. To keep things wholesome, the letters F and K are on the same cube, so they can't appear on the grid at the same time. This clever design choice ensures that no one can spell a certain 4-letter word, so it's safe for the whole family. It's fire truck. It's not 4 letters, so that was stupid. I'm trying to think of fork. Nailed it. 14. Stealing from retirees. Not only did the original Game of Life have dubious themes like poverty and so on, today you can enjoy the game by stealing money from retirees. Now, I know plenty of people have no problem with this in real life. I'm looking at you, governments, but in the Game of Life, it's right there in the rules. If a player retires to millionaire estates and all the life tokens are gone, their tokens are suddenly fair game for everyone else. Want to keep your hard-earned tokens safe? Retire to the much quieter countryside acres instead, where the biggest threat there is boredom. 13. Scrabble lets you twerk your way to victory. No, I'm not referring to whatever looks like dance moves where you're from. Twerk is now a legal word in Scrabble. The game's official dictionary gets updated every year to reflect our ever-evolving language, meaning players can now use modern terms like ew, okay, and even bit for digital currency. Thanks to these updates, you've got more ways to rack up points, and yes, even twerk your way to victory. No, I'm not going to. 12. Not everyone wins in Jenga. It's the ultimate moment of suspense. You carefully slide out that wobbly piece of wood, hold your breath, and stack it on top. Only for the entire tower to come crashing down to the delight of everyone yelling Jenga. The block stacking game has been a party favorite for years, testing players' patience and steady hands. Most people celebrate when the tower falls, thinking it's a group effort. But according to the official rules, there is only one winner. The last person to successfully pull and stack a block before disaster strikes. So the next time you play, remember, it's not teamwork that makes the dream work. In Jenga, it's every hand for itself. 11. The Aztec take on board games. The Americans don't have to take a backseat when it comes to ancient board games. Patoli is proof of that. The Mesoamerican classic was loved by both commoners and nobles, so much so that even Emperor Montezuma himself was said to enjoy watching the game at court. A mix of strategy and luck, Patoli was about gambling. Players wagered just about everything, from food and blankets to precious stones, homes, and sometimes even their freedom. The goal was to move pieces across the board and win all your opponent's possessions. The stakes were so high, and the losses so devastating, that Spanish priests eventually outlawed the game during the conquest of Mexico. 10. There's a $2 million Monopoly set. In 1988, San Francisco jeweler Sidney Mobell took Monopoly to a whole new level by creating a version worth a staggering $2 million. The game board was made from 23-karat gold, while the dice featured 42 full-cut diamonds as pips. Even the iconic houses and hotels were made from solid gold, topped with sapphires and rubies for a luxurious touch. The thimble, race car, and other game pieces? Solid 28-karat gold. Mobell donated the sparkly board game to the Smithsonian in 2003, where it was displayed at the Museum of American Finance until 2012. 9. The Viking game of strategy. Vikings didn't just raid and pillage, they also loved a good board game. In Toksh, one player tried to get their king safely from the center of the board to the edges, while the other did everything possible to capture him. Think of it as chess, but with axes. Toksh spread across Europe faster than Viking longships. It even inspired Terry Pratchett's Disco World game Thud. And yes, there are still Toksh World Championships, though the inaugural events were held on Fetlar, a tiny island in Scotland's Shetland archipelago with a population of just around 60, making world a bit of a stretch. 8. Before Monopoly, there was the Landlord's game. Long before Monopoly became a household name, Maryland actress Lizzie Magie created the Landlord's game in 1903. The board featured properties, railroads, utilities, and even a jail. Sound familiar? Maggie's original game aimed to highlight the social injustices of land ownership and rent poverty. Players could even pool rent for the greater good. But when Charles Darrow borrowed the idea 3 decades later and sold it to Parker Brothers as Monopoly, the message of equality vanished. Instead, the game encouraged players to bankrupt everyone else. Ironic, don't you think? It's like rain on your wedding day. Or a free ride when you've already paid. It's good advice that you just didn't take. And who would have thought? It figures. 7. The spiritual origins of Snakes and Ladders. Did you know that Snakes and Ladders, or Chutes and Ladders here in the US, has its roots in India? Originally called Vaikuntapali, or Leela, the game was created in the 16th century as a tool to teach morality and spirituality. Ladders represented the reward of good deeds, helping players climb closer to enlightenment, while snakes symbolized the consequences of vices like theft or murder, pulling them back. When the Victorians brought it to England in the 19th century, they stripped out the spiritual lessons, and by the time Milton Bradley introduced it in the US in 1943, the game had become a simple, lighthearted escape, just what people needed during wartime. 6. The Pharaoh of board games. If you thought the royal game of Ur was the gold standard for ancient games, Senet is here to claim the throne. Well, maybe. The game dates all the way back to 3500 BCE. That's over 1,000 years older than the royal game of Ur. Several sets have been found in Egyptian tombs, including 4 in Tutankhamun's burial chamber. The game boards were 3 squares wide and 10 squares long, with players racing their pieces across the board using sticks instead of dice. Squares on the board represented gods in the afterlife, and winning symbolized a spiritual journey to join the sun god and ensure survival in the netherworld. 5. The world's oldest game? Mancala might just have Senet beat when it comes to the world's oldest board game, but the evidence, it's not definitive. While artifacts of Mancala have been found in Aksumite settlements in Ethiopia and Eritrea dating back to the 3rd century CE, other discoveries suggest its origins are far older. An ancient Mancala board unearthed in Jordan dates back to 5870 BCE, making the game's possible origins over 8,000 years old. With nothing more than a few rows of holes and some seeds or pebbles, the game's simplicity is its genius. So much so that the Smithsonian called it the national game of Africa. 4. Chaupat and Pachisi. The Indian games Chaupat and Pachisi are the ancestors of the cross and circle games, with Ludo being their simplified Western cousin. Historically, players raced their pieces around the board using throws of cowrie shells to determine their moves. Capturing an opponent's piece involved landing on the same square, and if 2 of a player's pieces landed together, they could merge into a powerful super piece. These games were in fact so popular that Mughal Emperor Akbar I played a life-size version, using people as game pieces. However, how those pieces formed a super piece is a historical question best left to the imagination. 3. Operation's Sneaky Specialist Rule. In Operation, your goal is simple. Use the tweezers to remove tiny organs from your patient without lighting up the bright red nose. But the game's real secret isn't about steady hands, it's about strategy. Each player gets a specialist card, making them the top surgeon for a specific procedure. If another player fails that operation, the specialist takes over and earns a premium. The rules also allow specialists to fail their first attempt and step back in later to collect a higher payout, turning clumsy surgery into an advantage. Is it ethical? Not at all. But in operation, gaming the system is half the fun. 2. The game that outpaced its creator. Did you know the first 5,000 copies of Settlers of Catan sold out so quickly that even its inventor Klaus Tuber couldn't keep one? Released in 1995, the game became an instant phenomenon, captivating players with its unique mix of strategy, resource management, and trading. Even though he never owned a first edition, we're sure Tuber took immense pride in the legacy of his creation. His impact on the world of games is, well, if you ask me, undeniable. 1. A universe of moves. Chess isn't just a game. It's a mathematical masterpiece. By the time each player has made 5 moves, there are already over 69 trillion possible game variations. And that's just scratching the surface. American mathematician Claude Shannon crunched the numbers and estimated the total possible chess games to be around 10 to the 120th power. That's a 1 with 120 zeros behind it. No wonder it's called Shannon's number. To put that into perspective, the observable universe only has about 10 to the 78th to 10 to the 82nd atoms. Yeah, the number of potential chess game variations far exceeds the atoms in existence. And that's a wrap. Did I miss any iconic board game trivia? Or better yet, like I said in the intro, what's your favorite board game? Let me know in the comments. I really do love hearing from you. And if you enjoyed today's list, feel free to explore more videos that catch your eye. And if you're into true crime, check out our new channel, Dark Roast Detectives, where I dive into gripping cases and the mysteries that keep you up at night. Thanks so much for watching, and remember to like, share, comment, subscribe to stay updated, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.